It's a 1700R
Rasm 3-to-1.
3-to-1 pump.
Yep. I'll show you what the foot valve looks like. One of the defects there should have drained some oil out of it. One of the defects I get back is where the customers will over tighten their suction tubes and they'll flare this out. And what I do is when I get them in, obviously I don't have many suction tubes, so I have to try to repair it to flare it back in. And I come up with this little jig right here. I put it in an arbor press, set it down in the arbor press, and I'll take this suction tube upright and another block of wood like that, and I'll press that, and it actually presses that back into shape. So it's about the only way I can fix them. And the only reason that happens is the customers will keep cranking on their suction tubes and they'll flare that out. Then they can't get their bung adapter on or anything else. So we'll go ahead and screw that back on. I'm just going to disassemble this pump.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and just tear it apart. Get everything right up top. We're going to have some oil in this. Okay, what you want to do is take this off. That's just kind of like a supporting ring is all that it is. It supports that packing in there. Just keep it stabilized. A lot of times I'll be repairing this packing. As a matter of fact, every pump I get, 3-to-1 pump, that gets changed. So, and the way to get that out is stick a small little screwdriver in there, prop it up, and I'll just cut right into it. And that way I can take the new one and just pop it right back on. So, pretty easy. We're going to knock this top roll pin out to get this loose. Thank you. There she comes. She don't go out the other way. Try to flip it around and do it that way. She's coming. There you go. You have to take this off to be able to have access to the upper part of the pump. To change that air valve, every 3-to-1 pump, grease pump that we get from Rasm, we're always changing this air valve assembly because that's where you're going to get the most wear. It's in here. So, but in order to do that, you got to start from the bottom and work your way up. So, and what I do is I'll stick this pump in here. We got to get this off, and in order to get this off, we're going to use a spanner wrench. And what I do is there's a little hole for this spanner. Pop it right in there, and I'll stick a breaker bar on this. And the manufacturer will put sealer on there or Loctite on there, so these are going to be very hard to get off. But this one's been loosened up a little bit, so use a breaker bar and go around. And gotta get it back in the vise. There we go. And it actually supports the spring. There's a washer in here. There's the washer, and then your packing comes in after that. We're going to take all that off. There's your washer. And your spring is right there. That just pushes your packing up tight. Okay, we're going to go ahead and remove this adapter here. Just makes it easy to get it, move it around and maneuver it in the vise. That'll be sealed on there pretty tight. So now we have to work on the upper part. We're going to take the air cylinder off first, and we've got to take these two little bushings off. Need a smaller crescent wrench. That doesn't work. Usually have these pumps apart in about 5 minutes. Okay, that comes off. I'm going to separate this a little bit. Air cylinder's got to come off. Another big problem I have with customers is that they'll take a pipe wrench and they'll try to loosen up that air cylinder. Well, this air cylinder is really, really thin, and what they do is they put jaw marks into that air cylinder, and then it just basically comes through on the inside of the air cylinder. So then the air cylinder is bad. You don't want to use a pipe wrench on this stuff. On this pump. We use a strap wrench. You can see that air cylinder is not very thick, and a lot of times they'll put teeth marks and they'll actually go all the way through on that air cylinder, and then the air cylinder is bad. Okay, we're going to take this loose. Small crescent wrench, and I'll take this one right here. You could do this in any sequence. You can take these little ears off, these supporters of the there's trip shoe guide and trip shoe in there. You can take that off first. You can take the silencer. The silencer will have to come off. So it's just like maneuvering in the vise. You want to make sure that stuff is out of the way. Go ahead and loosen this up. And we're changing the air. We're getting to the air valve assembly, but you got to take all this stuff off to get to it. And that just supports the packing. There's your lower spindle, and that's just for the shuttle to move back and forth. And there's your upper spindle and air piston. Goes together just like that. Okay, we're going to go ahead and take that silencer off. We can go ahead and take the ears off now. Sometimes you have to use a breaker bar to break these loose. They're on there pretty good. And that just supports your shoe. Just like that. And there's the trip shoe guide in there. You can see it laid over. We're going to try and just tip that up, knock it out of there. It doesn't, oh, there it is right there. Do the other side. There's actually a screen in here, and in order to get to the screen, take this hex off. This is actually where you screw in your air supply, your water trap assembly. That comes out, and right there's the screen. These will get plugged up. We'll go ahead and take this off, knock the screen out, set it right here. Okay, now you can see inside here when we pulled the rod, the piston rod and everything apart, plus the ears, everything's just laying in there right now. So we'll go ahead and take them out. This is the shuttle right here, and that just moves back and forth and controls the trip. We'll set that right there. And get that out. Okay, here's your valve slide, your valve supporter, your valve seat is underneath there, and then there'll be a gasket in there, and this is the valve plate. All this will have to come out. Get a screwdriver. You get a lot of water and sludge in airlines, and it eventually ends up in here. So we'll just set that right there. Get that valve seat out. There it is. And that's what it looks like. You want to see the bottom part of that. It'll actually ride just like that. Positive. I usually use a hook just to grab a hold of this this plate. What you don't want to do is start scratching that valve seat. Of course, this is going to be a repair, so we don't really care about that valve seat too much. So let's get that out, just like that. And there's your valve seat. And if you watch when you take this out, you can see the way one edge is sharp where the other edge is rounded. They actually have this, it actually should go in this way. There's a sharp edge there and there's a rounded edge. That rounded edge needs to go against that gasket in there. There's a gasket right there. So we'll go ahead and set that down. And to get this gasket out, I'll take a little hook without scratching the lower part of that. You can usually pull up on it. If this gasket is stuck in there like it's baked on there, you'll have to use Goo Gone or something like that to get it out, or scrape it with your fingernail. I would not use a sharp object in there. You'll end up scratching this and then you'll have an air leak. So we'll go ahead and take that off, and we'll take the packing out next. Take my little hook, and I don't want to scratch the inside there on that aluminum. Just lightly grab it and it should come out. There she goes. There's one packing. There's not an O-ring in here, so it's just 4 pieces of packing. That's all it is. And then the supporter underneath. There's your 4 packing. Then there's a brass backup right there. And what I do is when I get a repair, I'll clean this head up. There's actually an O-ring in here that you'll have to replace too. We'll go ahead and replace that. I find my small screwdriver. Drop her in like that. Wedge her out. Should come right out. There you go. This pump is completely taken apart. We're going to go ahead and reassemble this 3-to-1. And even though we took the packing out last, we do not want to start with the packing. We're going to start with the air valve assembly and work our way down. So we'll just basically do everything in reverse here, kind of. There's going to be a printed side on this, and there's going to be a smoother side. Usually the printed side will go down. I can kind of feel an edge right there. Well, I want that edge, kind of like a burr right there on that leather piece of packing. That goes down because I want everything smooth on top. That's where that valve seat is going to sit. There's a rough edge on that valve seat and a rounded edge. Round edge goes down. Just like that. Valve plate. There's a rough side and a rounded side. Sharp side goes up. Just like that. Valve seat will go on next. You can see the little dimple on the inside there. That's going to ride back and forth just like that. Okay. Now our valve supporter. There's a little dimple on this valve supporter, and the dimple will actually, you want your valve slide to ride on the bottom part of that dimple. You don't want it this way. You want it this way. See it?
Okay.
Just like that. There we go. Find my hole. Alright, let's put that O-ring in. You can see where that little ridge goes, or where that little ridge is. That's where that O-ring sits. But you gotta kind of work it in there. There she goes. Just like that. Okay. Now we can go ahead and we'll put our spindle and shuttle together. This is the shuttle, and you can see where that valve slide would move back and forth. This is actually going to control it. That goes in there like that. And we'll take the lower spindle assembly and the upper spindle assembly. It's got the air piston on it. Go ahead and grease them. You don't have to. I like to keep everything lubricated, especially when you're dealing with O-rings like at the top. Just kind of work it in there. There you go. And we're going to snug tight this 2 wrenches, just like we took it apart. We have this and this. Actually, I want to do it this way. Don't have to be super tight, just snug tight. Good. Now we're ready to put the trip assembly together. Actually, before we do that, let's no, I want to keep this open. And there's a reason. Because we have to have access to it to put the trip assembly together. And I need a needle nose right here. And I already gooped that up. You can see I've used Slick Tite on there sealer. It's probably good for air. I wouldn't recommend it for anything you guys seal up with oil. Works perfectly fine for air though. This is just doing a balancing act with the needle nose and getting everything centered. Getting it started. I'm going to grab the other one. I'm going to reverse hands. And do this southpaw. Whoops, I just lost it. Very tricky part. Probably the hardest part of doing this pump. Sometimes you can get them on the first shot. There we go. Get it started. Just keep everything centered. And see where you're at. I'm going to move it just a little bit. There we go. Now I don't have this shoved all the way down because I don't want it to wedge against anything. I'm basically trying to keep it centered. So when I tighten these up, I should actually take this needle nose and be able to move that just a little bit back and forth, up and down. That just tells me it's right in the groove of where it needs to be. You can actually put these in and it'll catch that edge right there, and you don't want that. You want it right in the middle if you can get it there. Go ahead and snug them up. I've already sealed this, like I said, and then we'll go ahead and snug them up and then we'll tighten them up. You want these tight. getting there. One more. There you go. Now we're going to take it and we're going to flip it. Grab my bigger crescent wrench. Snug them up. Not over tight. Just like that. There we go. Okay, now what I like to do is go ahead and you can see how it works. Now, what I like to do is go ahead and put some grease in there. Not a lot, just a little bit. Smudge it up a little bit. Because you get a lot of water in the lines, and this just keeps everything lubricated. Okay. We can go ahead and put this back on. Then we'll put the air cylinder back on as soon as I get this assembled. Snug tight. There you go. There's a smooth side and a rough side. I usually like the rough side out. It just drops in. All it is a screen. Doesn't really matter. And then our adapter goes back on. Snug that up. Don't have to seal that. There's an O-ring on that. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and lubricate the piston. That's good. And I'll take a little bit and put it on the inside of that cylinder. Good. Grab a towel. Get it close and make sure you don't pinch that O-ring that's in there. Kind of help guide it in if you have to. This one fell right into place, so. Use a strap wrench and snug up the air cylinder. Just snug tight. Okay, the upper, oh, we gotta finish one part yet. Gotta put our air passage back on. And grab that small wrench. Sometimes you have to maneuver this and move it up and down a little bit to make sure everything's lined up. Sometimes these couplers will not screw on exactly straight if you don't have everything straight on it. There we go. That's good. Right about there. And go ahead and snug them up. We'll go ahead and assemble the bottom part now with the packing. Okay, this is our supporter. That just drops in. I want to grab a screwdriver. That'll work. Just like that. Actually, I'm going to grab a bigger screwdriver. There it is. First packing, do one packing at a time and just kind of guide it in. You don't want to cut the packing, so just take your time. And just gently push it in. All the way down till it bottoms out. There you go.
Okay.
Good.
And we'll show the cup on it. Show the cup.
Oh, you want to see the cup? Okay. It'll go in just like that. There's the bottom part, and there's the cup. Cup toward the bottom of the pump.
Okay. All of them go the same.
All of them go the same, yep. Just like that. Okay, and then we got another supporter right here. And you can see where it fits right into that packing. Sits right into that cup, so it'll go in just like that. Okay. Get a spring. There's a taper to that spring. You want the thicker part of that taper on the bottom part of the pump, thinner part toward the packing, just like that. There's a little ridge actually on that little supporter that'll hold that spring. Now this part right here, I usually go ahead and put it right back in this flange, and there's a flat part of that washer and there's a round side, flat side toward the bottom of the flange, just like that. And what you want to do is you want to put some sealer on this too. So, and I'm going to do that right now.
Okay.
Washer's going to come out a little bit, but that's okay. We just want it to sit on that spring. You'll hear it pop when it goes in. Okay, make sure you start everything straight. There it is. Now I'm going to go ahead and use my spanner wrench, grab a hold of it. And there's a hole right here for that spanner. You can see it. Just like that. You hear it pop?
Mm-hmm.
That's that spring going into place. And you don't have to overly tighten this, just like I say, everything just needs to be snug tight. There we go. Now we'll go ahead and put the lower part together. Same way we took it off. Okay, there's a little hex right here. Just like that. You want that hole up and down so you can get that roll pin in. Screw this in. This is where I would put, you can screw this on, put the packing on, that fluid cup packing. Like I say, I'll stick something in here and pop it up, and then I'll cut that packing loose. But the other one, this packing will go in kind of hard. The other one will actually go on kind of hard. You got to really stretch it to get it on there. It'll tend to roll a little bit, but just take your screwdriver, if it rolls on you, get up underneath it and just pop it into place. This is good packing, that's why I didn't cut it. And I'm going to go ahead and line that up with this. You want to make sure that roll pin hole is lined up perfectly, because you can be off one way or the other and make that roll pin go in a lot harder. So, straight up and down, and this should go right back in. I don't have my specs, so. Supporter goes back on. There's a little taper to that supporter too. You can see where it tapers one way or the other. And I usually like the cup part facing it toward the top of the pump so it lifts fluid. It actually catches some fluid right along with the packing. And all that does is just supports that lower piston. That's all it does. Okay, we're going to go ahead and put some sealer on here. This stuff, this Slick Tight doesn't work well with grease, but it works okay on this pump for oil. So a lot of times you don't even really want to use them like on meters and stuff like that. So this is okay on this pump. I would use liquid Teflon if you got it. Okay, we're actually ready. We'll just put the adapter back on. Go ahead and seal that. Use Teflon or whatever you got to do. That goes back on. Just like that. And your silencer. And that is a 3-to-1 Resum 1700R.